The drought situation in the country is showing no signs of change. This is according to the Intergovernmental Authority on Development Climate Prediction Report showing drought is likely to continue in the coming months. According to the latest report by IGAD, the drought is being caused by a combination of factors, including the La Niña weather pattern, which has led to a decrease in rainfall, and the warming of the Indian Ocean, which has disrupted the normal weather patterns in the region.
The delegates gathering in Nairobi, Kenya for the 63rd Greater Horn of Africa Climate Outlook Forum examined the forecast for the March to May 2023 season, which points towards depressed rainfall and high temperatures in the country.
We have suffered and continue to suffer significantly and adversely from drought and famine, resulting in a catastrophic humanitarian calamity. We therefore need to develop climate services that are tailored to our needs, and particularly for our governments and all stakeholders that utilize these products for socio-economic planning. We have suffered and continue to suffer significantly and adversely from drought and famine, resulting in a catastrophic humanitarian calamity.
Kenya, Somalia and Uganda have been most affected by the recent drought, with failed consecutive rainfall seasons recorded in the countries.
So basically we are talking about a situation where we are not improving. What we are talking about is we've had failed seasons from May 2022, which was one of the driest in the region. So we are looking at this cumulative impact of dry season. Even if we get these little rains in the coming season, how far are we going to be outside the drought? We're still looking at a situation where these extended widespread droughts are experienced, especially over the eastern part of the region, that is eastern Kenya, southeastern Ethiopia and Somalia.
The prolonged drought has had a devastating impact on the country, with over 4 million people facing severe food shortages and water scarcity.
The need for enhancement of our early warning systems cannot be overemphasized. We are in the middle of a drought that has not been witnessed in the last 40 years in this country, and that among many things speaks to the need to up our game in terms of early warning.
The Food Security and Nutrition Working Group, co-chaired by IGAD and Food and Agriculture Organization, estimates that close to 23 million people are currently highly food insecure in Kenya, Ethiopia and Somalia.
Generally, we're looking at high chances where we are going to get drier conditions. And basically, when for the past few years, we've experienced these dry conditions, and we are looking at high chances of a sixth failed season, especially over the arid and semi-arid regions of Kenya, Ethiopia and Somalia.
The situation is particularly dire in arid and semi-arid lands in the country, with Marsabit, Samburu, Mandera, Wajir, Isiolo and Garissa being the worst affected. The Kenyan government has been taking measures to address the crisis, including providing relief food and water to affected communities and drilling boreholes to increase access to water. However, the scale of the crisis is such that more needs to be done to ensure that those affected receive the assistance they need. The IGAD report is a stark reminder that climate change is real and is having a profound impact on the African continent.
The drought and famine could either be an indictment on the providers of climate prediction products that do not interact effectively with users to meet their demands or otherwise. We therefore need to develop climate services that are tailored to our needs, and particularly for our governments and all stakeholders that utilize these products for socio-economic planning.
In response to the report, Kenyan officials have called for increased international support to address the crisis, noting that the country cannot tackle the issue alone. Salma Salim, The Muslim Insight.
Thank you for that. Now, earlier this week, interreligious leaders from various faiths visited Jamia Mosque, Nairobi, in an effort to promote coexistence and mutual understanding between the different religions. The visit, which was organized by the Interreligious Council of Kenya and the St. Paul's University, aimed to foster peace and harmony between different religious groups and to encourage dialogue and collaboration.
The leaders representing different faiths, including Christianity and Islam from different parts of the country, were received by the Dawa officer Sheikh Ratib Abdul Noor of Jamia Mosque Nairobi, who took the leaders through the mosque tour, explaining different aspects and roles of the mosque to the community.
Uislamu umetuhimiza sisi tuweze kukaa kwa pamoja, tuheshimu dini yetu, tuheshimu madhehebu yetu. If you have a good news in your religion, you can share the good news. You can share the concept of your religion, but at the same time by respecting the choices of others. And that is the only way that we will be able to tolerate each other and to live together.
Speaking during the visit, Bishop Stephen Kalunyu emphasized the importance of such interactions in promoting coexistence, saying the move will help promote peace within the communities.
Sisi sote ni watoto wa Ibrahimu. Na tumeona kweli tukiendelea na uhusiano wa namna hii itakuwa ngumu kuishi pamoja, kusaidiana, kushirikiana, kuleta uwiano na amani kwa maendeleo. Sehemu zile ambazo tunaishi hatutasosana, na kukiwa na mchozo tutaweza kutatua pamoja kama jamii ya watoto wa Ibrahimu.
Sheikh Anas Ali Abdallah, the Imam of Jamia Mosque Machakos County, expressed his appreciation for the visit, saying that it was an opportunity for people of different faiths to come together and learn from each other.
Tumekaa na wenzetu wasiokuwa Waislamu wa Kristo kujadili mambo ambayo kwamba yanatuleta pamoja. Taifa letu kuna mambo mengi tunakuja pamoja. Ukiangalia kama mambo ya education, mtoto anapoenda shule anasomeshwa na mtu yeyote. Wewe ukienda hospitali unatibiwa na daktari yeyote. Ukienda pale popote unahudumiwa na mtu yeyote, Muislamu ama si Muislamu. Tunakuja pamoja. Mambo mengi, na kama sasa hivi kuna ukame, tunakuja pamoja kuangalia kuweza kuwafeed. Kwa hiyo sisi tuna mengi ya kutuunganisha. Na tumekaa na wenzetu Waislamu wasiokuwa Waislamu, tuwaeleze mazuri ya Uislamu na wao watueleze ile mazuri ambayo kwamba wako nayo, tuje pamoja tuweze kushirikiana, tuishi kwa pamoja na tuweze kusaidiana katika ile taifa letu.
We have been training both religious leaders from the Islamic religion and the Christian religion, of course, on how we can peacefully coexist and live together in harmony, in love, and of course caring for one another, because at the end of the day all of us are human beings, and irrespective of our various religions and cultures, there's one thing that brings us together, that is life. We are all human beings.
The visit to Jamia Mosque is just one of many initiatives being undertaken by the St. Paul's University to promote peace and understanding among different religious groups in Kenya. For Muslim Insight, I'm Darmi Mahmood.
Thank you for that. Now on to alarming news. A new species of mosquito has been discovered in the country. The mosquito named Anopheles stephanis was previously thought to only exist in parts of Asia and the Middle East. According to Dr. Shamsa Ahmed, the head of infectious diseases at the MP Shah Hospital, says there are concerns about the new species as it is stronger than the ones we are used to. Dr. Shamsa says the new species can survive in harsh conditions, making it even more deadly.
Now what we're seeing, this new one, this Anopheles stephensi, it has always been there, but it has been in India previously, and that is what has been causing infections in India. Now you see, with travel, it's not just you who travels. Even the mosquitoes get a chance to get on the planes, get on the boats, things like that. And slowly we're seeing that it's now been moving into Africa. So over the last 30-40 years, we've seen, first it was coming down through Saudi Arabia, and then we're seeing that it's now coming down to Djibouti, Somalia, and now we've seen species of the same Anopheles stephensi here in Kenya. The KEMRI report was about specifically Marsabit in Lysamis. So the concern about this is the vehicle or the vector is much stronger than the one that we are used to. It's much tougher because, one, it can survive conditions that are more harsh. Remember, even a mosquito needs to have a good condition for it to survive and live. So one, it can survive conditions that are more harsh. Our mosquitoes have a different biting pattern, meaning they're more likely to bite you at certain times of the day or in the evening. This one can bite you during the day, it can also bite you at night. And then we find that this is now more prevalent in urban settings, meaning places like Nairobi where we thought maybe we can't have infections. That means there's a possibility of you being able to get malaria in Nairobi. And it likes to live in areas that have water. You see, right now we have water shortages. What is our response? Everybody is collecting water, putting it in drums, putting it in containers, and those are the places that now this vector or this vehicle can survive.
Thank you for that. Now, stakeholders in the education sector in Marsabit County have raised concerns over the increased number of learners dropping out of school due to drug abuse. They said there is a growing concern in the country as the drug abuse problem has now shifted from the community to school-going children. According to stakeholders, several secondary schools in the county have reported cases of students caught with drugs, bringing the number to more than 6 cases of students abusing drugs reported in schools in Marsabit Central this year. The leaders called on the National Authority for the Campaign Against Alcohol and Drug Abuse, local representatives to carry out drug and substance campaigns in the regional schools. They called on the government to establish a rehabilitation center to be used in helping the affected persons in the county. Thank you for that. Now moving on, Zakah Kenya will hold an iftar walk that is aimed at raising funds to feed the needy and the less fortunate families during the holy month of Ramadan. The iftar walk, which will take place this Sunday, the 26th of February 2023, aims to fund for iftar and will see participants walk 8 kilometers from Adam's Masjid on Gong Road to Sarali Muslim Club in Gara. The event is organized by Zakah Kenya, a non-profit organization that works to alleviate poverty and provide relief to the less fortunate.
The Iftar Walk 2023 aims to collect funds that will be used to feed over 5,000 needy families in Nairobi and its environs during the holy month of Ramadan. According to Abdishakur Mohamed, the Vice Chairman of Zakat Kenya, the event, which is in its 6th year, has been successful over the years, giving an opportunity for people to come together and make a difference in the lives of those who are struggling.
The purpose for this event is to create awareness among Muslims and the general public about the issue and the importance of helping your brother, and more so for the Muslims because it is Ramadan that is approaching, and as we all know, the month of Ramadan, the Prophet ﷺ encouraged us to give sadaqah and to feed those who are less fortunate. That is why we are creating this awareness through the walk.
Speaking to Horizon TV, Abdishakur said the funds raised from the charity walk will be used to provide food aid to needy families throughout the month of Ramadan. According to Zakat Kenya, the organization has set a target of feeding at least over 10,000 families during the month.
Of the beneficiaries, we have a quite good number of beneficiaries across Nairobi, in the slums of Nairobi, to mention but a few: Kibera, Kawangware, South B, Mkuru, Kwajenga, Mkuru, Kwaruben, and Fedha. These areas, we have each and every representative of us who are collecting the names and bringing the data to us after approving and doing the verification. So our work is going to be easy as Zakah Kenya, whereby we partner with these people from these areas who are becoming our partners, and they themselves do contribution.
The Iftar Walk is one of the many charity initiatives being undertaken by Zakat Kenya to help alleviate poverty and provide relief to those in need.
Why are we feeding Muslims in the month of Ramadan and encouraging people to give in the month of Ramadan? Is because, number one, the Prophet ﷺ, as in the hadith of Ibn Abbas, was the most generous person, and he became generous more when it was in the month of Ramadan. That is number one. Number two is because the Prophet ﷺ encouraged us to feed the less fortunate in the month of Ramadan. And what was the reward for you feeding a Muslim who is less fortunate? Is you will get his reward without taking anything from that person. So imagine if you fast you alone and you feed one family. If the family is comprised of 3, father, mother, and a child, so you'll get reward for fasting for 3 people.
Zakat is one of the 5 pillars of Islam and is an obligation for all able-bodied Muslims who meet certain criteria.
Came together and realized that there's been a lot of duplication in giving the iftar to the less fortunate. So what we decided as Zakah Kenya is to come up with this idea whereby each and every area will come together. We have a team whereby each and every area bring their names each and every Ramadan, and these names are not going to be repeated. the last year's names is not going to be the same for this year. So we might find, like example, in Kibra, one group will bring a name, maybe 34 this year, and maybe the last year they brought 30. Or maybe the opposite. Last year they brought 34, this year they might bring 30.
The initiative is based at Masjid Salam, but organized by Zakat Kenya in partnership with mosques and other Muslims organizations. The Iftar Walk was launched in 2017 with the objective of minimizing the duplicity of food distribution, which is a common factor during the month of Ramadan. Mariam Musa for Muslim Insight.
Thank you for that. Now moving on, Muslim women leaders from Nyeri Majengo have appealed to the government to assist in eradicating the abuse of narcotics and miraa. The women leaders, led by Nyeri Muslim Mosque Association Secretary for Women Affairs, Asha Jama Abdullahi, condemned the rising crime rate which has been occasioned by drug abuse. Speaking to Horizon TV, the women leaders decried the suffering parents are forced to undergo, including loss of household property as their addicted children try to quench their thirst for drugs.
For generations, the uptake of narcotics in Nyeri has been a thorn in the flesh for many parents. Many youths have lost their productive and active years in the consumption of the so-called soft drugs like miraa, bangi and alcohol. Unfortunately, this has had profound negative effects to many homes.
Tuna shida moja kubwa sana ambapo madawa ya kulevya yamejaa kila mahali kama hivi mwanavyo huku kote, vijana wadogo wadogo. Utapata hao vijana hawajijui, hawajitambui, wanakupita, wanakuangalia wewe ni mzazi wake lakini hakutambui manake ametumia mihadarati.
Nikiwa kwenye kikao kia Wetemere, nina uchungu sana kama mzazi nikiwa pa Wetemere, nikijionea vijana wetu wakiharibika, wakipotea, watoto hawasikii lolote, hawana heshima na mtu yoyote. Ni hizi dawa. Mtoto ukishamnyima pesa, ukimtuma mpaka mtoto mdogo dukani, hafiki kununua kile yataka, ameongojewa njiani. Ni hao vijana wanachukua pesa, wanaenda wananunua madawa. Ningeomba kweli kabisa hizi dawa ziishe, kama itawezekana ziishe. Ndani ya nyumba kwenye ploti uwezi watambaka beseni nje, waje waziokota waenda kuziuza kwa skrebo.
So what are the reasons attributed to the uptake of narcotics amongst the youths?
Youth wetu wamekuwa engaged kuwa kwenye mihadarati ni kwa sababu ya kwamba wao hawana kazi za kufanya. Sasa imewaelekeza kutumia hii mihadarati. Lakini tunaweza kuwa na jambo mwafaka ya kuwafanya wao wakatoka kutoka mihadarati na kuonyeshwa kwamba wanaweza kufanya mambo mengine kama sports. Na tunajua vizuri sana vijana wetu wako na talanta. Wana talanta ya soka, wana talanta ya drama, na hii yote tukiengage hawa youth wetu, tunaona ya kwamba mihadarati inaweza actually kukosa wakati.
Ningeomba tupate makazi kama mavijana. Kazi mtani kiwa hapo tulikuwa tukisaidika sana. Tukiwa kama vijana tuliweza kujisaidia, hakukuwa na wizi mwingi, hakukuwa na mambo mengi, kulikuwa kumetulia. Lakini toka hizo kazi zipunguzwe, ikawati watu watakio kazi zingine, hizo kazi tumeziongojea muda mrefu sana.
Meanwhile, Muslim football coaches in Nyeri have been using soccer as an alternative recreation activity for the youths.
Sasa tunazungumza na vijana kuhusu tabia na the same pale wanapotoka. Hatujali kama Majengo ama Western ni wapi, lazima hiyo discipline kwa kila sehemu lazima iweko. Kwa sababu hiyo mambo ya madawa ya kulevya, vijana wengi sana wamepotea kwa hizo madawa ya kulevya, kunyonga watu ama kuibia watu. Lakini kazi inachukua vijana wote kitu kimoja, na maofisho wetu kuweka vijana vizuri ni kazi kubwa, na bila kuongea nao na kubadilisha tabia bado inakuwa ni kazi. Lakini Mungu ametuwezesha, tumeweza kuwachukua vijana wengi kutoka Western, Nyanza, wapi mpaka hapa Nyeri, na kesa tunawazungumzia. Kwa kweli imesaidia pakubwa sana.
Apparently, these coaches are also advising the youths to abandon the overusage of the social media, internet and also the PlayStations.
Tumeshirikiana sisi kama kocha wa Kiislamu, tukafikiria ni aje tunaweza leta vijana wa Kiislamu katika mambo ya extracurricular activities kama sport, ball, athletics, pia kuepukana na hii kitu ambao wamekuwa exposed kwayo sana, ambayo ni social media sana. Social media imeexpose watoto wetu, waache kuconcentrate sana na vitu kama hizo, kupoteza time mingi sana kwa masimu, PS, mambo ya kucheza hizo games za PS. Tunaweza kuwarudisha kwa mambo ya extra kama ball. Sana sana tumeshirikiana upande ya mpira kama makocha wa mpira, tuwarudishe pamoja ndio tuweze kunacha hiyo talent yao na kuwazuia sana waache kupoteza hiyo time mingi sana kwa mambo ya social media.
The women leaders have appealed to the government to eradicate and mitigate the ever-rising cases of narcotic abuse.
We appeal to the government to come up with possible solutions to help these children to curb this problem. And alternative ways or possible solution is coming up with activities these kids can do. Like we have football clubs. They empower these football clubs. They put them in place where we can register our youth. They go and do these things. Alternatively, where they'll be taking more time in these clubs than being idle.
Tungeomba tumaliziwe haya madawa ya kulevya, mihadarati, yani aina yoyote ile, tungependa tumaliziwe. Serikali tafadhali tuomba musikize vilio vyetu sisi kama wazazi.
Hii ni request tunaiweka, lakini tunasema sio request, tuna demand, because pesa iko, county government can do a change.
As the negative effects of the drug abuse becomes more and more evident here in Mount Kenya region, these women leaders and football coaches are convinced that extracurricular activities and counseling could be part of the solution. Yahya Mahinda reporting for Muslim Insight in Nyeri County.
Thank you for that. That last story brings us to the end of our first part of today's show. But don't go anywhere. I'll be back after the short break with a review of today's Friday Bulletin. Joining me will be Mr. Musa Mwale.
Verse of the day.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
ويوم نسير الجبال وترى الأرض بارزة وحشرناهم فلم نغادر منهم أحدا وعرضوا على ربك صفا لقد جئتمونا كما خلقناكم أول مرة بل زعمتم أن لن نجعل لكم موعدا.
Uislamu ni dini yenye mpangilio ulio kamili na taratibu zake humpa fursa kila mja kuifahamu na kuelewa.
Muislamu yoyote lazima achukue jukumu la kuifahamu dini yake, kuanzia kwenye shahada, ashhadu, nakiri kwa moyo,
kisha usafi wa kimwili.
Hapo ndipo huanza safari ya kumwabudu Mola wake.
Usikose kujiunga nasi kila siku ya Jumamosi live kwenye kipindi Ufahamu Uislamu ili ujifunze mengi usiyojua kutoka Horizon TV.
Tazama ukumbi wa fiqhi kwenye Horizon TV. Halal, haram, sunna, wajib, makruh, mubah, ili upate kujua ahkam za ibada kwenye Horizon TV. قال تعالى في محكم تنزيله بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم
نزاها kutoka pwani.
هذا الدين قال الله قال الرسول قال الصحابة هم أولو العرفان انتهى.
Ili kuongoza kwenye njia iliyonyoka.
Sikizeni hadithi hii ya Mtume alayhi salatu wasalam. Hakuna atakayeweza kumfungia mtu mlango ambaye Mwenyezi Mungu alimfungulia.
Kuimarisha imani yako.
Thabbit qulubana ala dinik wa ala ta'atik.
Ungana na mashekhi wetu kutoka pwani kwenye mimbar.
Mimbar zinamwakilisha Mtume sallallahu alayhi wasallam.
Ni Jumamosi na wakati saa 3 usiku katika Horizon TV, runinga uipendayo.
Quote of the day. Imam Muhammad bin Idris al-Shafi'i said, "Whenever I voice my opinion or formulate a principle where something contrary to my view exists, on the authority of the Messenger of Allah, peace be upon him, then the correct view is what the Messenger of Allah, peace be upon him, has said, and it is my view."
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you so much for staying with us here on Horizon TV. My name is Nadia Osman and I'm joined by Mr. Musa Mwale to give you the review of today's Friday Bulletin. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you today?
Alhamdulillah, and you?
Thank you so much. I'm good, alhamdulillah. Thank you so much for joining us here today. We're going to go through the Friday Bulletin today. Alhamdulillah, the first story, and this once again is the front page of today's Friday Bulletin. It's about the Quran competition that has officially kicked off last weekend.
Yeah, thank you very much, and welcome viewers. Once again, of course, we know that Jamia Mosque has been organizing the annual Quran competition.
Yes.
And I think this time around they're giving an opportunity for many people to participate.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the zonal competitions
yes.
are called an opportunity to everyone in terms of, I mean, within Nairobi
yes.
region, to participate so that they don't feel left out.
Yes.
Because when you have the Quran competition here, the space is not as big. It can only accommodate so much.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have the zones compete and then produce the best within those zones, then
mm-hmm.
those best come to now compete at this level. It's like you're having it at national level.
Yes.
So this is very nice, and I mean, we encourage it. We hope this will grow into a more national competition where you have all the counties
mm-hmm, yes,
having their own, then the 47 counties, then collapse it into the national competition, inshallah.
Yes, inshallah.
Memorization of Quran is key
yes.
to our children and to the deen in general.
Mm-hmm.
But the benefit, some of the benefits is that it really opens up the brain. Kids who first memorize the Quran before they go to school perform very, very well in school.
Yes, it is
That
true.
has been proven. So it's for the benefit of the child and the parent too. But also just having the Quran in your heart. It's something that every Muslim should aspire to, or many Muslims aspire to have.
Yes.
Some of us wish we had that opportunity at our early stages to do that, because right now it's quite a challenge to sit and try to memorize because of the too many life demands and challenges.
Mm-hmm.
But for young people, it's very good. It comes in handy. Their brain is still young enough to really grasp quite a lot of Quran.
Yes.
And then open their brain to much more challenging things.
It's a very, very good initiative.
Yes.
Now that is once again on the front page of today's Friday Bulletin. Now moving on to the second page, Mr. Musa, and this is Jamia Hills Kalebi's appointment. He is the person who's appointed to oversee the affordable housing project in Kibra. What would you say about this?
This is quite interesting because we have always said we need homegrown solutions to homegrown problems or challenges. And what I can see here is that Kalebi is one of the sons of Kibra, and quite a number of community members from the Nubian community are represented, because historically Kibra belongs to the Nubian community. However, of course, with the invasion of other communities, they have lost that land. I think from almost 8,000 acres to what it is now, 200, less than 300 acres. However, there's need for, of course, them to have a good, habitable, homes to live in. And therefore, this is a very good program, and being headed and managed by the indigenous people, the Nubian community themselves. It's quite laudable, because then they would be keen on their lifestyle, on their culture. Unlike when someone else comes from out to try to impose their way of thinking and their way of doing things and their way of living. The Nubian community has an opportunity this time around to design their own infrastructure the way they want it, and the way it's comfortable for them. So this is quite good. We are praying that with all this expertise, we are eventually going to have a nice, good, habitable Kibra.
And for the future, what is this? How is this going to positively impact now the Nubian community?
Well, of course, once you have a habitable place, one, of course, it earns a lot of things, in terms of health, in terms of mental health, in terms of security, in terms of growth. There's room for people to actually now pursue other things in life, other than just thinking of where they live, the conditions under which they live, that are very tight conditions. So we hope that this, inshallah, is giving them an opportunity for more growth within the society, to see more people excel within that community, and not taking their living condition as a limiting factor.
Yes, and just to move on to the next story that is continued on the second page, it is about the earthquake in Turkey. On Monday, there was a 6.4 magnitude earthquake that also happened in Turkey. And Mr. Musa, this is just coming nearly 3 weeks from the previous earthquake that claimed around 41,000 lives. What would you say about this? Because this is a very, it's very sad indeed. And as we had constantly said that as Kenyans, as Muslims, we stand firmly with the people of Turkey.
Yeah, well, it had actually been predicted, and people had been forewarned that that Turkey was not out of the wood yet in terms of the earthquake. But as usual, people are anxious, like those people who passed on, unfortunately. Were going back to take their stuff, much as the government had really warned them. So, of course, people should take some of these things very serious when authorities communicate to you that there's danger in something. People should avoid. However, we still continue to pray for our Turkish brothers. And we still should encourage ourselves to not only pray, but continue giving material support to them, so that we can ease their pain and the suffering.
Yes, and on prayers and material support, that also there are contributions and donations that Jamia Mosque Nairobi had already started, and it's still continuing. So any person who feels that they're able to help, able to donate, then they can find the posters also today on the Friday Bulletin and on various social media platforms. Now moving on to the Huruma Islamic Center, which are appealing for their land because they're about to get evicted. What would you tell us about this?
It's the responsibility of our community to ensure that we have both madrasa and prayer facilities in every corner. Islam is the fastest growing deen, not only in the world, but even in Kenya. And therefore, we know that space has been there, provided by the government or by the county government. But with time, because of our not being involved or being active in following up some of these things, quite a number of those plots have been grabbed by private developers. However, a situation like this calls for us not to just look back at what happened, but maybe go ahead and help in identifying a place and just buying it.
Yes.
Because I know the community has enough resources to do this. And it's just fair that we support the Huruma community to actually get a place for the Islamic Center for their children.
Yes, they had already found a piece of land that it costed 9 million Kenya shillings, and so far they've raised around 1.2. And they're asking for Muslims to help them in, getting those funds so they can be able to purchase the land, inshallah. And that is on the second page of the Friday Bulletin. So anyone, once again, who feels that they're able, once you said it, it's very important to have such, Islamic madrasas, for the community as well, and Islamic institutions. So anyone who's able to donate, the contributions and donations, all the information is found on the story that's been written on the second page. Now, Mr. Musa, we're moving on to the third page of the Friday Bulletin, and I know this is something that you would really, really love to speak on, and that was the interfaith tour that was held earlier this week in Jamia Mosque.
Yes, thank you very much. One is that, of course, I'm one of those members who was very early in interfaith issues, and by then, in 1998, 99,
oh, wow.
it was seen as very strange and maybe betrayal to deen. But I think with the time, people have appreciated that. And the Jamia has taken the leadership in providing that space, especially people visiting the mosque and just trying to understand. Because people out there don't know how the mosques look like.
That's true.
They think it's just this mysterious place, like the Hindu temples and all that. But when they come in and they just discover that it's just a prayer mat, just a carpet, and nothing else,
no
that
idols,
simplicity, that humility,
it
humbles people that, so even the so-called dignitaries or the high and mighty in society would actually come and sit on the ground and listen to the khutbah or sermon or darsa. This exposes people to that kind of dawah. So it's a very, very effective form of dawah, exposing non-Muslims to Muslim institutions, Muslim prayer facilities, so that they go through and know how we do our things, especially when it comes to the ibadah of worship. I mean, the ibadah of prayer. So this is quite good. I know quite a number of institutions now use Jamia as a learning point. I know St. Paul's, I know Tangaza College. They come here. I do have classes there sometimes, courtesy of some of my friends. They invite me to give some lectures, and quite a number of students, we attach them to Jamia Mosque to just come and find out what is happening, not just what we tell them about Islam, but practically experience it within the Islamic community. So the Jamia Mosque, both open days, and these courtesy calls and just opening up space for non-Muslims, and especially the clergy, to just come and understand. It exposes them to Islam, but also reduces that hostility and misconception towards our deen. And therefore, Yes, of course, some, inshallah, will end up getting hidayah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Sure.
But the most important thing is to reduce that level of suspicion, the misconception, and the hostility that is normally displayed towards Islam and Muslims.
And the main aim for this tour was, you know, to encourage not just other fellow Christians and non-Muslims to, you know, to feel welcome inside the masjid, but to also promote peace and peaceful coexistence with our non-Muslims, brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
And once again, Sheikh Musa, that is very important, the way you're telling us, like, you can just walk into a mosque. For any non-Muslim, you know, the mosque is not a place where it's said only Muslims can enter. You can feel free to enter and, you know, ask any questions, inshallah. And as you've said, it's not for us to know, but, you know, Allah can give them hidayah as well.
Yes, sure.
Now, moving on to the 6th page of the Friday Bulletin, and the topic that we're going to speak about is the dangerous mosquito species that has been reported. We'll just come back to, now we're on page 6, we'll just come back a little bit back, but just to look into the story. There's a new species of mosquito that has been reported in Kenya.
Yeah, yes, this is quite worrying, but also to some extent encouraging us to continue using. I know the Minister of Health and many other people within the health sector have continued encouraging people to use the mosquito nets.
Yes.
And people ignore this. But when you have this new species, because of course the other species, they cause malaria, but somehow our bodies have found a way of dealing with it. But with the new species, we don't know how that will manifest.
Yes.
And therefore, it's just crucial that people continue using mosquito nets.
Yes.
And you know, living in areas that do not have a lot of these mosquitoes,
yes,
like taking care of our environment, not dumping the way we dump litter outside without caring the impact that will have not only on the neighbor but even on us. Because once you have litter dumped, you have water, stagnant water, you're just pouring water outside your window or door without caring, it will come back to hit you.
Yes.
Because mosquito will find a way of living and they will come to hit you back.
Yes.
So this is just tells us that we need to take care of our environment, but also ourselves, especially the young ones and the elderly.
Yes. Yes. Now, as previously we on the Muslim Insight earlier today, it's back to the basics. Just the way you've mentioned, you know, sleeping in treated mosquito nets and also taking care of our environment. And what should be worrying Kenyans in general right now is, before we usually had the narrative of when you go to Kisumu or when you go to coast is where you can get malaria. And now the new species is coming into urban areas and they're very adaptable. They're adapting to the environment, and you know that should be raising concerns, and anyone and everyone should be very, very aware of that.
Sure.
Now moving on to the same page. Now we're looking at the government urge to act tough on insecurity. What would you tell us about that, Mr. Musa?
Insecurity has been with us, and of course, there's more focus on some regions rather than others. But you know, for me, I see insecurity as a general problem that affects everyone.
Yes.
Because even in Nairobi, you get mugged on the street, and nowadays they even don't mug you; they just stop you and tell you, "Give us what you have," and give us while you are smiling, you are laughing. So you take care of you give them your phone, you hand them your bag, and you're smiling with them.
Yeah.
So there is need, of course, to beef up security. Of course, like now, we're going towards Ramadan, and people will be doing their Tarawih prayers, and that, you know, walking to the mosque late or leaving the mosque back home very late. And it's an opportunity for the security organs to also facilitate and ensure that Muslims are not harassed during this period, either by the security organs themselves, you know, trying to extort money out of innocent civilians, or even from the gangsters, you know. So it should be everywhere, and yes, it's worrying, like in the Rift Valley, of course, with cattle rustling and all that, banditry. It was some time back, it has been worrying at the coast where you have these small groups coming up and harassing people. And actually not just harassing, but harming and maiming people. But let's look at it generally, and let's just increase the amount of security that we have within the country. Yes.
Now moving on to the 7th page of today's Friday Bulletin, and the next story is very, very sad, especially for young kids, and that is the alarm of rising drug abuse in Marsabit, and not just in Marsabit County, but in schools within Marsabit County.
This is a report, I think, from Nakada.
Yes.
And this is, of course, it is brought out this case, Marsabit schools. But I know that all schools,
yes,
including schools in Nairobi, kids as young as class 3, class 2 are selling or peddling drugs. They are used by drug peddlers. Some of them are used by their own parents to peddle drugs, sell them to schools. Because once you get a school, you know, there is huge market. Even if the child is just selling a small dose for 20 shillings, you know, and you have more than 1,000 children in school, and just maybe 100 of them buy daily. So this person is making money, and you know there are a lot of schools. So the focus should not only be in Marsabit, but all over the country, and the government should also look at the issues of not just these other drugs that are used in schools. In drugs, the drug issue is very complex. I teach drug abuse, but when you are talking to young people, they tell you of the drugs that you've never heard of. The issues that are coming up within the drug abuse, things that you cannot imagine. They're not so traditional than we know. So basically, I think parents should be very vigilant, but school administrators should also be very vigilant, and security organs in terms of protecting our children from issues of drug abuse. But also, our own communities should also look at things to do with Mogoka. It's also really impacting negatively and seriously on our community. So let's not just zero down to schools, but also within our community and what is happening. Yes. The issue of drugs. And maybe just take this opportunity, not just talk of drugs, but issues of the LGBT and LGBTQ and this, these other phenomena that is coming all the way to our sitting rooms. I think parents should stop being sponsors to their children, but be parents. Yes. They should start parenting and having conversations with their children and trying to understand and know on a daily basis how their child is faring on, both in school, outside school, and at home. This will help us. We cannot leave it to just the school management or the security organs. Yes.
Now we're moving on to one on the 7th page. We're still on the 7th page, and we're seeing a picture of the Jamia Mosque Finance Officer Abu Bakr Nazir. He's handing out a bursary check to one of the needy students who were able to benefit from some of the programs that Jamia Mosque runs. What would you say about this, Mr. Musa?
This is something that we laud Jamia about in terms of making it easy for young people to access education through the bursaries. It's unfortunate that quite a number of people don't know about this. Yeah. And you get a child who scored so well, they're still home second term of the year because of lack of school fees. Yes. And yet there are proper mechanism to actually be able to secure bursaries through either Jamia Mosque or any other institutions. I know even our Islamic banks have had some of these programs. So for Muslims, let's not just sit back there and just wait and start crying. The community is not helping, people are not helping. Yet there are mechanisms to help out. If they follow the procedure, of course, and they come in good time. You also don't want to come the second week once the people have started sporting to school, to come to Jamia and say, now you need bursary. And then it's closed already. So you start making noise, say, oh, they denied me. There is their procedures, and people should know. So Friday, by highlighting this, Friday Bulletins is simply telling people, please, this is not a paper you take and you put in your house,
or you just grab it in the masjid.
When you read, you get this information. You get to know this information. You don't need the information, share it out with other people. Let them know that these facilities exist and they can make use of them.
Thank you for that. And also on the same page, we have also the Zakah Kenya Iftar Walk that is to be held on Sunday. And this is another initiative from Zakah Kenya where you get to walk 8 kilometers, and at the same time, whatever money you get to use on rather the t-shirts or, just going out with your family. It's 1,000, I think it's, I don't know if they've stated it. You buy a t-shirt, yes.
1,000, yeah.
Yes, you buy a t-shirt and you get to walk a marathon. And that is, I think, one of the best initiatives, on how to raise funds, especially for Ramadan. And they held it I think, was it last year? And it was a huge turnout. So for anyone who's interested in, participating in this, they can be able to find further information on the 7th page. Now, Mr. Musa, now we're looking at one of the topics that I want you to a little bit touch on, and that is marital conflicts. You are a mediator. You work with the Masla Mediation Center, and you can tell us a little bit about this. For those who are facing marital conflicts, how would you, advise them on how they would resolve them successfully?
Well, yesterday, I think in KTN,
yes.
We had the senior principal Qadi of Nairobi, talking about divorce, and it was quite interesting. But of course, we know that I was here last time talking about issues of divorce being on the rise, and I said that it's not just maybe on the rise, but it's just that it's being now highlighted.
Yes.
But it has always been there. Of course, in any relationship, there's conflict. And to some extent, they say conflict, some conflict is healthy, because then it helps people define relationships, define on how they want to work together. So what we say is that conflict is healthy when you transform it positively rather than negative. So most of the time, of course, we transform conflict negatively, and that's when it affects. But we need to know that when it comes to marital conflict, it's not only the two parties involved. It's not only the husband and wife, but we also have the amana that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will have blessed that family with. Those are the children. And the effect that has on children is dire. When you start complaining that your child is not performing well, you think maybe someone has done either sihir or it's hasad, but it's you yourself, because of the environment you live in with your partner is not conducive to support the child's development and growth and performance in school, and even their self-esteem. Because when a child lives in a very hostile environment, they get affected.
Yes.
So I think, of course, we said first and foremost, people should seek premarital counseling before getting married. But they should also continue seeking therapy when it comes to issues of when they notice there's conflict within the family.
Yes.
Of course, Islam has a proper mechanism of how to address that, both at individual level and at family level. How do you go about conflict? How do you go about anger, managing? So I think people should be able to see experts, and alhamdulillah, we have quite a number of experts within the community. We have us who are doing mediation, but we also have a lot of psychologists, counselors, like the Muslim Psychologists and Counselors Association. It's here to help. You can find it. You can go to, of course, Jamia Mosque here, Family Resource Center. There are people who are willing to help you deal with your issues, especially when it comes to marital challenges. rather than letting them boil to the extent of divorce and impacting negatively on the children.
Yes.
And also, basically, let people just invest in understanding the responsibilities within a marriage.
Yes.
You know, because we invest in our careers that are short-lived, and we never invest in our marriages that are lifelong decisions, you know. So
Yes.
people should try to invest in attending darsas, reading about marriage, you know, from, of course, credible sources, you know, sitting with elders, you know, our own parents and uncles, and just asking them how they've managed to go through life all through,
Yes.
you know, and of course, going to the experts like the marital therapists.
Thank you very much. And I think that brings us to the end of the review of the Friday Bulletin, unless there's anything else you'd like to add, Mr. Musa.
Well, of course, I just want to laud the Friday Bulletin for continuing to give us information.
Yes.
I encourage people not to, you know, just take it and throw away.
Yes.
I know people buy newspapers expensively. This is given for free.
Yes.
It's part of Jamia's Sadaka to the community, so for people to get information. So once it's given for free, let people not assume that even the news here is not worthwhile. It is, and people should make use of it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Musa. And I think that brings us to the end of today's show. Once again, thank you so much for staying with us here on Horizon TV. I'm Nadia Osman, and this was the Muslim Insight. Until next time, inshallah.